It's been a while since I've been here, up on here. Thank you all for coming today. I'm representing High Noon today. This is what I do. I haven't spoken on my own behalf in 11 years. That's how long I've been doing High Noon. And what we do at High Noon is we're creating culture, okay? Does anybody know what culture is? What is culture comprised of? Traditions? Yeah, for sure. What? Way of life? Yeah. Yeah, all of these are right. Everything's right except for that. Just kidding. Just kidding. Oh, I see. What I've boiled it down to, because this was like something, 2016, we wanted to help our culture and our movement. But you have to first define something before you try to help something, right? And over the past 10 or 11 years, I've boiled it down to this. What culture means to me is what a group of people celebrate and denigrate, right? The things that you uplift and the things that you say is not right. And a lot of times what you think is your culture isn't actually your culture. Yeah? So I've realized, and I have some core ingredients to the culture that we've been creating. We've been very steadfast in maintaining certain regimens of behavior, lifestyle, and what we celebrate in our culture that has now the byproduct is a certain ease, where that's like our default setting. Yeah? Because we as individuals have cultures, our families have cultures, this community has a culture, our global community has a very confusing and diverse, depends on which country you go to. Kind of feels like a different church. I've traveled a lot and I'm like, this is the same church? But it's just what people celebrate, okay? So today I really want to, my name is Andrew Love, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. And culture is super important, but it's all predicated on something. I first want to just give you an update about High Noon. Last time, when I first came here, 2018, I was just supposed to come for a weekend, and then Mike got his little claws in me. And they had a barbecue for me, and Justino and Joel were like, hey, what's your deal? It's nice to have you here. And everybody's so nice. I was like, what's up with this place? I got to move here now to figure this out. So, yeah, no problem. It was all you guys. But back then, High Noon was this, right? I was High Noon. I was just running around trying to do stuff. Now, we have 26 staff. We have chapters in Japan, Latin America, Philippines, Europe, and Korea. We have our programs in those languages, but if you can imagine, we have Russian. We haven't translated into Irish yet. We're getting there. But we have many languages, and we serve many, many people. Australian, they don't exist to us. Just kidding. We've had people in New Zealand and Australia in our programs. They understand us quite fine. It's nice. And we have programs. In the beginning, it was just about addiction. We helped people with pornography addiction, and now we have marriage preparation. We still have addiction. That's our flagship program. But we also have marriage enrichment, and we have an entire high school initiative. Also, we have School of Love, which is to help parents and children have rewarding conversations that start to create a culture around talking about sex. So it's not like a crazy topic. It just comes up. Because I didn't grow up in this church, but you hear about chapter 2 when you join this church, and everything to do with sex is like scary. Yeah? It's fear-based, but it's not about the ideal, right? The ideal is about love, and sex is ultimately about love, and God really loves heavenly sexuality, which I can get into, but we have an entire initiative just to help create that beautiful rapport that parents want with their children. So, because if you can talk about sex, you can talk about anything, because it means so much to us as people. We don't perpetuate as a civilization without it, so it's kind of important, right? But if you can go there, you can go anywhere, and it's really, really nice. So we're doing that. So we have online programs. We offer mentoring. We just finally created a collaboration in Europe where we're doing a tour with the Chumbo team around Europe. They invited us to 14 events, and we cannot do all those, but we actually have a delegation going to Russia. And Anybody know Marilyn Angelucci? Yeah, she works for us now. She's doing 50 plus couples. So we're trying to, Uncle Dave calls it cradle to grave. Trying to get the whole family, trying to help everybody, okay? And this is what our constellation looks like. The High Noon constellation. This is all of our staff. You probably can't see all those faces. But we were working, and I'm kind of at the center of this, trying to make it all work. Now I'm the director, and it was just like me managing myself, and now it's me managing heaps of people, a lot of people. But at the core, we don't say anything or do anything unless we're embodying it first. This is precedent. This is priority. It's like living these virtues, and if not, we have no power. And I notice this also about our movement, to be honest, is when we embody the things that we speak of, then we have great power. And when we're not, when we go against our own faith, we lose a tremendous amount of power, right? So I want to tell you why I got into this, because I was a pastor in Maryland back in 2015 with my wife. We had 2 kids, and I was just minding my own business, and then I got invited to this conference in North Carolina, which is all about pornography, and I just kind of wanted to know some stuff, and it was a 3-day conference. And first thing that hit me was just recognizing how widespread this problem is, but also how personal and how much it's destroying the fabric of humanity. Because at its core, what it does is it attacks your ability to love yourself. And a person who stops loving themselves stops believing in themselves, and then that person has no power. And then God can't work through them anymore. But also what happened was I heard this sentence: the opposite of addiction is connection. And something about it just rang so fundamentally true. And I was like, yes. And I just believed it and I ran with it. But I didn't realize until like a couple years ago that I didn't understand what this statement means. Because what is connection? It's kind of a big deal. If everything hinders on connection, then what is connection? You have to figure it out. And I do have a formula. I've been working through this for many, many years, and I do believe I have a formula for what is connection, and I'll get into that. But I can tell you this much, is that Chanulguk, anybody know the literal definition of Chanulguk? When 2 become 1, yes. Which is lofty. But that means that heaven on earth is when your heart and God's heart are one. If you're in a marriage, when your heart and your spouse's heart are one and you don't feel any differentiation, that's a perfect moment. That's a perfect feeling. It's kind of hard to get to sometimes, yeah? But also with your children, when you look at them and you just love them unconditionally, that is heaven right there. We look for it under rocks and everywhere. We try to build it, but it comes through us, nowhere else. That's where heaven starts, on this planet. Hell also is created through our hearts. It's through the distance between me and you. Because if I don't feel you, I can justify just about anything. I can say anything I want and I won't feel any repercussions. Yeah? When you gossip about somebody, that's the building blocks of hell. Yeah? But it's the same with ourselves. Like when we're not connected to our own hearts, that's when we feel completely estranged from who we want to be and we want to run away. Right? So this is hell on a micro and a macro level. Okay? This is what True Parents said back in the 90s. High noon is the time of the brightest sunlight. There is no darkness anywhere, only brightness pervades the atmosphere. It is the condition of fullness, there's nothing lacking. It's the total feeling of warmth and belonging. It's the baby who breastfeeds. And do you know that like when babies are that small and they're breastfeeding, like in the first few weeks of life, their eyesight is only calibrated to be able to look into the mother's eyes. It's like you are me and I am you, right? And apparently too, the most amount of dopamine that you can experience as a human is as a mother, either right after birth, that skin to skin, because you are 2 becoming 1, right? Origin, division, union is happening in that instant. You are 1, and then you're 2, and then you're becoming 1 again, right? But that is true of all of us. That's what we're fighting for every single day, is to feel at ease with ourselves, to stop going to war with ourselves and our environment too. Yeah? And when we feel peace with our environment, everything seems to flow. Doesn't mean it's perfect, it just means it flows. And when our environment feels like it's attacking us, nothing feels right. Yeah? So what our culture really prioritizes is really attacking shame. Guilt is fine. Guilt is heavenly because it helps us figure out that we're off track. But shame personalizes a mistake and says, I suck. And that becomes your identity. But no, you don't suck. You're a child of God. You are love. You are not suck. Yeah? No secrets, even the difficult stuff. This is a really high standard to maintain. It means that when you have fears, you talk about them. When you have regrets, you talk about them. When you have hopes and dreams, you talk about them. This is becoming an antiquated skill in our society, is talking to people about stuff. Because we just do this all day, right? No judgment. This is really, really, really hard. And even if you do judge, to not trust your judgments, to recalibrate by returning back to your original state, which is love, unconditionally. How easy is unconditional love, y'all? The hardest thing ever. It's like the hardest thing ever. But that's actually our native language. We've just forgotten it as a civilization. But that's what we're returning back to. Well, that's what true parents are trying to guide us back to, is a state where that's our default setting, but it takes practice. No justifications. This is a fodder. It's just, justifications are taking steps away from who you want to be, one at a time, rather than facing up to who you are and what you've done. Openness between parents and children. We're really working on this, man. This is a big one. Because we hear it from both sides. I'm exactly in the middle. When I joined this church, I was like, when I'd hear the kids talk about their parents, I'd be like, yeah, yeah. And when I heard the parents talk about their kids, I'd be like, yeah, yeah. And then I realized, like, wait, you guys both love each other. Why are we all fighting here, right? But this is like, parents and children represent the past and the future. It's kind of a big deal. And generation, it's not just our church, it's humanity. There's a war between generations. And that's a war between the past and the future, right? And living in harmony with your ideals. And I'm going to unpack this. This is one of the greatest concepts that I've wrestled with and have come to peace. And I really feel like I understand it, which I'll get into. So purity culture, man. So when you have an ideal, sometimes that's great and sometimes it's torture. It depends on your relationship with your ideal. And that's what this slide represents. This is my favorite slide that I've ever made, even though it's terribly ugly and I get reamed for it all the time. When I did this talk 2 weeks ago in LA, in the LA church. And Josh, the pastor, came up to me and said, is it okay if I redesign your slides? And I said, back off, man. My slides, I'm working on it. So your ideals are the person that you want to be, deep in your heart. Not just like some fleeting thing, some fleeting desire, like I want to be cool, I want a cool jacket. Those aren't ideals. Those are just marketing, right? Ideals are like, if I was the person that I really want to be, this is like the deep stuff, right? This is like my hopes and my dreams. This is like, as a spouse, like I want to be this kind of a person to my wife. As a parent, I want to be this kind of parent. These are the things that really, really are important to us, yeah? But the more that we live in opposition from those ideals, the more pain that we feel. And the more that we reside away from our ideals and live opposite from our ideals, the more that our ideals, even though they're inherently beautiful, start to bring us pain. So this is where you hear people talking about God with anger or resentment. They say, God, I hate God, right? God is love and only love, yeah? But when people feel something, it's because they've lived so far away from God that they don't know God and they just feel pain in relationship to God, right? And so at some point, if you're living apart from your ideals, whether it's the church, we see this all the time in any church, any faith, right? But you have somebody who feels like, okay, this is how I should be based on my faith, and this is how I'm living. And if I'm living too far apart from it for too long, I have one of two decisions to make. Either give up on my ideals and just justify myself and say, religion's stupid, I hate it, it's all blah, blah, blah. Or I have to give up the things that are taking me away from my ideals. The bad habits, the negative thoughts, right? So you have to give up one or the other. And this is in the addiction space. This is what we're contending with all the time, is we see people who say, they cry deep in their heart. They say, I want to be this person, but I can't. And it's like they're watching the person that they want to be, and it feels like it's fading and fading and fading. And they don't feel entitled to being that person, but that's their destiny. They just can't feel it. They've forgotten who they are because they're so far away. And the journey back is always possible, guys. We have to understand this. This is a core Christian belief, is grace. Yeah? Grace. But to feel grace, we have access to grace 24/7 and total and utter forgiveness on a soul level 24/7. But it's us who blocks it. It's us who puts ourselves in our own jail and closes the door and sometimes locks the key and sometimes throws away the key. But we can leave at any time. God's doors to reconciliation and to grace is open all the time. So purity is a state of being. A lot of people think of it binarily, right? They think that if they make a mistake, I'm not pure, period. I am pure, I'm not pure. No, it's something that you need to practice. It's every single thought, right? When we focus on the wrong thing, anybody have a bad day where you just obsess with the wrong thing and all of a sudden your mind is now just super angry and your heart is really dark? Anybody? Just me? I'm just the only Scorpio in the room here? The only psycho Scorpio? Okay, I don't know. I only know Scorpio. I'm selfish. No, I am. I'm just saying. About horoscopes. But purity is something that requires practice and devotion, okay? And so a pure mind, it thrives on gratitude, right? When your mind is really pure, you're just looking out into the world and you just say thank you. You look into people's eyes and you don't see all of their brokenness. You just see what God sees. That takes practice, yeah? A pure heart is very generous. It forgives easily and gives just as easily. Gives people a second chance and a third chance. Our judgment is on us. That's not a God thing. That's an us thing. And a pure spirit pushes the body to do the right thing, the thing we know we should be doing, time and again. But again, not easy, takes practice. Takes practice. So there's a concept that if you're not growing, you're dying. This is true especially of babies, right? But it's true of our minds, true of our hearts, true of our spirits. If you're not learning, your brain is going into atrophy. That's what they say. Now, things like, age-related things that were just thought of as when you get older, my mom still says it, I got like senior's brain. No, you just don't learn enough. Like to be a learner forever allows you to have a mind that's robust and is constantly pulling in you're forming new synapses. You're growing and building new neural pathways. Same with our heart. If you're not embracing new types of people, then your world starts to shrink. You know that, right? And it happens to us sometimes. Like it happened during the pandemic. People stopped mixing it up, so the world became very scary. That's why my wife and I, one of the reasons why we travel, because to get started traveling again is scary every single time. But then coming home becomes scary. So then we got to do that too, right? But I had this neighbor called Baba. She was this old Ukrainian lady. She was this big. She just shrunk every time I saw her. She'd been through a lot. But towards the end of her life, she was less of a human and more of just like a mythic creature. And she was our next door neighbor. And I had to go to school every day and pass her house. And all I would see is the curtain kind of going. And she just kind of fade away. And she became more and more afraid of everything. She stopped leaving her house. And again, this isn't a judgment, but this is what happens to all of us when we stop meeting new people, talking to new people, growing, yeah? This is all part of staying alive. You're either growing or you're dying. I believe that fundamentally. So when we have closed minds, then we're not open to new ideas. This is the ego, is lock, stock, and barrel. The ego has you in its grip. And it judges others. You hold on to the past and you replay these stories again and again and again and again to just reaffirm your negative thinking. And you form concepts about others and you just look for validation. See, that person is a jerk. I got evidence, right? It's very legalistic. And it uses sexuality and these deep things as a form of avoidance instead of connection. So this concept, are you guys okay? I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Okay, you're very quiet, and it can be good and bad. So God is the ultimate ideal. It's imagine this for a second. Imagine that all of this is true. And I run these games often. I've been in Korea during the war games. You know those war games that they play where they're practicing for a war? I do that in my own mind a lot, where I challenge my beliefs and my concepts. And it's called trimming the fat, because sometimes we have lazy concepts that we validate, and sometimes they need challenging in order to stay sharp, right? But imagine, I run this experiment a lot. Imagine that actually all of this is true. Imagine that we are God's children. Imagine that we were born to have dominion over the entire cosmos, and that the universe is our playground, and there are no limitations except for that which exists in the mind and the heart. That gives us a tremendous amount of power. Then what blocks us from this power? Shadows. Your parents talked a lot about shadows. But shadows, if you can imagine, shadows can come in the form of self-hatred, regret, judging others, judging yourself. It can be that shame. My children are like this. I'm ashamed of my kids. That's a massive shadow. My wife is like this. My husband's like this. These are all shadows in our heart that block us from that power that we can only get when we're in a state of unconditional love. Yeah? And so like I mentioned before, guilt is actually a heavenly thing. It allows us to be like, if you've done something that goes against your conscience, what you know is right or wrong, guilt allows us to be like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. And then we correct it by apologizing, whatever. Shame is identifying as being a broken person, which we're not. We're works in progress, but fundamentally our identity is we are children of God. Yeah? And when we relate with that, we start acting like that. But when we relate with I suck, then we start living up to that prophecy as well. Okay? Where did that come from? Oh, yes. Your voice came from everywhere somehow. That was wild. So why do we keep shadows? We're so afraid. We're so afraid of people knowing who we really are. The first group I ever formed was a bunch of young men. This is like 11 years ago. This is a high noon group. And I talked to one guy and he's like, look, man, I'm really struggling with pornography. Can you help me? I was like, yeah, I help you. I was like, go find some friends and we'll form a group. He's like, oh, none of my friends struggle. I'm the worst one. I'm terrible. Then we formed a group, and it turned out that every single one of these 5 guys believed that they were the only ones struggling. They were all the worst people in the world, and all their friends were way better than them. Huh. Coincidental, isn't it? That we do this a lot. Everybody else is great, and I suck. We compare ourselves to other people. But part of unpacking that is letting people know when you made a mistake. This is ultimate liberation. This is the beginning of healing, is talking about the good and the bad, the sweet and the sour, the spicy and the delicious. I mean, spicy is delicious. Sorry, I know. You probably like spicy, right, Nadim? Yeah, sorry about that. Freudian slip. But we often fear the repercussions of our own actions because we feel judgment. Why? Because we're so used to judging ourselves. Yeah? We're worried about our image, protecting our image. Eugene, who comes here a lot, was talking about in Ukraine, they have this crazy system that if you're fighting as a couple in Ukraine back in the day, they had this amazing system where you'd go in front of your group of 12 people and you'd talk about how you're fighting, and then this forum would tell you who's right and who's wrong, kind of like a court system. And if things couldn't be resolved there, then you'd go to the higher court, which is the entire community, and then they'd weigh in on your marriage. It was very confronting. And he said one time this guy who'd never shared anything, he was really silent. One day he spoke up and he's like, look, I know you guys all think I'm perfect. And everyone was like, like nobody thinks you're perfect, right? And it's like, oh, this concept in his head was like, everybody thinks of me in a certain way. And it's like so skewed, right? So a lot of times we're protecting something that isn't even there. It's our image, which is fickle and fragile. A lot of times we don't want to take responsibility, right? That's when we justify. We have a habit of being weak instead of strong. And we believe in the darkness rather than in the light because we're so used to staying there. So common types of shadows are parents ashamed of their children. I see this a lot. Hey, how are your kids? Oh, they're not in the church anymore. I didn't ask that. How are your kids, right? How are your kids? To look at them as individuals in need of your love, unconditionally. Children ashamed of themselves, right? Children ashamed of their parents. Just shame, a lot of shame. Spouses resentful towards each other. We see this all over the place. Anger towards the church, unresolved anger. So much of that. Fear of going to the blessing. A lot of young people. Every country we've been to, there's at least 2 to 1 young ladies prepared for the blessing than there are young men. Because there's so much self-doubt in young men across the globe. It's really heartbreaking to see. And part of it is they don't know their own value. Because all they see is their failures. I'm not rich. I have this addiction. I suck. This is their identity, not I'm God's child. Yeah? They don't have enough good voices running through their head. This is the end result, is you are not worthy of love. Whether you understand it or whether you just feel it. This is what a lot of us contend with. And this is from the origin of the fall, right? Is we believed that we are not God's children. And so we act like we're not God's children. So what's the solution? Anybody into solutions? Yeah. That's what I've been working on for the past decade. And one good thing to note is that the addiction space and all that used to be really convoluted and complicated, and I feel it's a lot simpler. Because like my wife likes to remind me, love is simple, and God is simple. We just complicate the crap out of it. She doesn't say that part, I say that part. But we make it really complicated. So one thing is this, these are the 5 virtues. These are the non-negotiable ingredients to a life where you are living powerfully and together with God. Okay? And it's how you filter out the junk. That's through living with great honesty. Honesty towards yourself, others, and together with God. Prioritizing honesty. And again, all of these, people see themselves through the binary lens of I'm honest or dishonest. Right? I have courage or I'm weak, right? But no, see them more as muscles to be built. When you have exercised your honesty muscle sufficiently, it's so easy to tell the truth, even when it's difficult, and it's so hard to lie. Right? But for a lot of us, it's way too easy to kind of half tell the truth or to justify, and it's really hard to admit the whole thing, right? Accountability is when other people in the world know who you really are, what you're trying to do with your life, your mistakes, but also your hopes and your dreams. You say it out loud to another person. A lot of people are much more inclined to write it down on a piece of paper in Champyong or somewhere and then burn it, but they don't tell people. This is a huge part of it, is accountability keeps us sane. Without accountability, we become weird, yeah? This is why church communities, people are trying to create all sorts of alternative religions or whatever, but they're, in many cases, just trying to find a way to not have to do this, which is accountability. Because if I have some great idea of I know who God is, right? And then I tell you and I look at your face and your face is like, right? I'm like, oh, right? Maybe I gotta refine that approach, right? But also sometimes you're right. Sometimes you are right, and sometimes you need to fight for certain ideas. I have a spiritual mother who introduced me to the church back in 2009, right? And in the beginning, she would tell me everything, and I needed to listen because I was just super arrogant. But then after that, I started to stand up for myself. Like, no, I think I'm right. And she's like, oh, be careful. And I was like, no, I think I'm right this time. And so he said, let's pray about it. So we would do prayer conditions, and sometimes she had to admit that she was wrong. That was nice to hear. But also sometimes I was like, oh yeah, I was way off. How do you figure that out? In community, right? Grace, we cannot give what we don't have, right? So if you see somebody suffering and you want to lift their weight, you have to be free of your own weight to help them lift their weight. To be a vehicle of God, you need to be an efficient vessel, right? And that is, to receive grace is primary. Giving grace is secondary, yeah? So to be forgiven is how we allow others to feel forgiven. So that means if you have family or if you're trying to help other people in this world, we need to be filled with God's grace. That means we got to let go of our own stuff. Integrity is being a person of your word. You know, with addiction, you constantly do so many things justifying your actions, you become inherently a liar. And then you stop trusting yourself. It's one of the first things to go is trust in yourself. And when you can't trust yourself, you can't believe in yourself. And if you can't believe in yourself, you can't believe in anything. You just kind of lose hope. So to start building integrity is to start making these micro commitments that you then fulfill. And now you're starting to be a person who says, wait, yeah, I lived up to that. And you start to feel like you've got integrity. And courage is what allows these other things to happen. Courage is what allows you to have that difficult conversation, to be honest, about a mistake that you make or about how you really feel about somebody. Because sometimes you got to say, like, as husband and wife, sometimes you got to say, like, I don't like how we've been living, and those are difficult. You get that nervous feeling in your stomach every time, right? And that's a sign of growth. That's not something to fear. That's a good sign. You're going in the right direction. As you're afraid to talk about it, that's how that feeling gets liberated, is through talking about it. But it requires courage every single time. And that's how you do it. That's called SFX, baby. That's my graphics. So that's how you get back through the shadows, back to God, is by living this life as a priority every single day until this becomes your default setting. I am just a person who lives in the 5 Hanun virtues. So the opposite of addiction is connection. I want to unpack. These are the 4 forms of connection. So before you get into that, I did a deep dive. So all of this, Hanun is a nonprofit. All of our resources, even our programs, 100% free. Yeah? Shout out to Claire, who's our accountant, by the way. She's been helping us. Everybody. You guys probably don't know that. I just pulled her into our little universe, and she's been helping us so much. So I made a 2-part series, if you want to do a deep dive. It's part of our podcast about what is connection, because I really had to answer this. And every time there's a big concept that I need to understand, I have to wrestle with it, because I can't use other people's words or ideas. I have to understand it for myself, partly because I'm a simple man. But if I want to talk about it, it's got to be like in my bones. And so I really wrestled with this idea of what is connection. And through the Bible, through the principle, and through psychology, through sociology, I figured out that there are 4 main elements of connection. And when you have these 4 areas going well and full, then your life flows. And when you start to empty out, you stop to go off kilter and you start to go in weird directions. So I will unpack them. These are the 4. Connection to yourself. Connection to others, physical human beings. Connection to Heavenly Parent, our God. And connection to a sense of purpose. Okay? And I will unpack these. Just shout out to my son drew this, but it was with a pencil in 5 minutes, and we took a picture and ChatGPT turned it into this. And even one of them was the wrong color, so I said, change the color, and it changed the color in seconds. It's crazy, the world that we're living in, right? But I want you to understand it like this. When you're not feeling connected to yourself, and I would say most people aren't, that I talk to, most people don't know themselves. When they have a headache, what happens when you guys have a headache? What do you do? That was very fast. Yeah. Yes. This is what we do. I have a thing, so I need a thing to take care of the thing. Instead of understanding, why do I have a headache? What's going on? What is my body trying to tell me? Right? Why am I sad 2 days in a row? What's going on? Why is my back hurting? How have I been sitting? There's some basic stuff, but then deep down too, like, why is it that I'm starting to get angrier at this person? What's going on here? We don't take the time to really look at that. You know what we do instead? This is the ultimate escape, is our phones. This is the opposite of connection, right? Connection to others. This means to have a bunch of different roles being fulfilled, meaning that you have close friends that you can ugly cry in front of sometimes, occasionally. Some people, it's a lot more than others. Me, I could have a good cry and I'll be good for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Some people, like the Oprah crowd, it's like every day, yeah? It's a catharsis, right? I don't judge, but finding out, okay, how much time do I need with people having fun so that I feel filled up? And how long do I feel filled up for? Really important information. How much time do I need in terms of self? Do I need to be by myself? How much time, and what does it mean to spend time with myself? Is that in nature? Is that in prayer? When you start to answer these questions, you'll start to feel more like yourself. How much, and which way do I connect with God? Honestly, there's no one prescription for everybody. Like some people really need to be in nature. They really need, that's how they feel God. Other people, it's through the word, in prayer. And prayer at what time? I'm useless. You know, a lot of people do hunduke at like 5 a.m. I call that sleep duke. Because I'm useless. I'm speaking drivel. I'm saying words like Heavenly Father, blah, 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 blah. And God's like, yeah, just go back to bed. Shut up. Right? Because I'm useless. But nighttime, I have really deep, nice prayers. Right? That's me. Finding this stuff out. How do you feel close to God? And your sense of purpose is what can you contribute to that's beyond just you? Right? And for some people, it's small. It's just like the people right in front of them. Because they need that too. And for other people, it's really big, right? It's societal or it's world level. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If everybody's contributing, that's great. And the idea there is that you need something that's not, you're not the focus and you're not the beneficiary, right? Where somebody else benefits from you. And when you have these things in equal amounts, like with yourself, you're spending enough time with yourself. It's going to be different for every single person, how much that is and what you do. But when you find your recipe of yourself, how much time to spend with other people, how much time to spend with God, how much time to spend on the thing that is like your sense of purpose, I'm telling you, you just feel alive. And that's the opposite of death. And when we're starting to die, we panic and we start to go to our addictions, whatever they are. I would say everybody's probably addicted to their phone. Yeah? No? No, wow, I gotta know. But you go to your addictions, and addictions can be emotional addictions too. A lot of us can be addicted to victimization, right? Because it's comfortable and familiar. I know somebody in my family, I have 2 people, one who's addicted to anger, even though it's ruined his whole life, but it's what's familiar to him, so it's what he always goes back to. I know another person who's always the victim, no matter what. And they never get anything out of it. It's always bad, but that's just familiar, right? So we can be addicted to emotions too. But a connected person is a fulfilled person, and a fulfilled person makes good decisions. It's when we're empty and desperate that we make harsh, rash decisions, or when we just do something to quickly get rid of the pain. There's usually a price to be paid, right? But when we're fulfilled, we can see much more clearly, and we're making decisions based off of our ideals and who we want to be. And so that's the formula to getting back. Okay, like I said, is first you need a vision. We call it the North Star goal, but it's an internal vision, okay? Most people, when they set a goal, it's like, I want this much money in my bank account, or I want to lose this much weight, or I don't know, something external, because they think that's what's going to give them the good feelings. We cut out the middleman, the thing, and we go straight to who do I want to be? If I was living as God's child, if I was living as my original self, how would I wake up? What would I eat as an original version of myself? How would I use my phone? It's a big one. Because your phone can make you millions of dollars and can also waste your entire life. Choose your battles, right? So your vision is, and we typically ask people to focus on 3 months at a time, because it's very much like the seasons, right? It's just like on this season of your life, who do you want to practice being? Okay, so that's your vision. And you do that by practicing honesty, accountability, grace, integrity, courage together in a community of other people who are doing the same. And that's how you start to create this growth internally, and that's how your life starts to make more sense to you. And the more that you like your life, the more that you want to stop running away from your life. And I think we all try to take mini vacations. Netflix, anybody? It's like a mini vacation. It's not that entertainment's bad, but we typically go beyond entertainment towards like, save me from myself, from my thoughts, which is why you binge watch shows, right? Is why you just scroll and scroll and scroll, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. Look at your phone. Your phone will tell you exactly how much time you take a vacation from life. Yeah? Every Sunday, you get a report, and that's your report card for how much time were you running away from yourself or not. Yeah? So, this is my last thing, I think. Yep. We have highnoon.org is the hub of all of our stuff. We have marriage preparation program that's closing today. We have couples that's starting in June, next month, and that's every age couples. We're running something for the newly blessed couples, but we also have, it's called Radiant, which will run for 50 and under, is by this crazy lady we just hired in Moldova. Her name is Diana. And she is a cardiologist. She's the mother of 3. She volunteers for Women's Federation and UPF, and she works for us. And before we hired her, I was like, are you absolutely positive you can handle this? And she's like, yeah, I got this. And she's one of our best staff. So she's got 50 under, and we have Marilyn Angelucci, who's building out everything for 50 plus, right? And then we have our addictions, for pornography, that's opening in June as well. So all of our programs are free. Please feel free to join. But the essence of what I'm trying to say is this. The opposite of escapism, you could call it addictions, but escapism is connection. And connection, however you find it, if it's the real stuff, fills you up in a way that nothing else can substitute. No amount of the fake stuff will ever make you feel more like yourself. It'll always make you feel weird. Like after scrolling for, let's say 45 minutes on Instagram, does anybody feel particularly amazing? You feel like I suck. I'm the poorest, fattest person on the face of the planet. And I don't deserve to leave my house today, right? That's what it teaches us. So instead, using that time to be like, wait, every time I'm reaching out for my phone, what am I going to use it for? And if you don't have a good reason, chuck it. Yeah? Same with the fridge. My God. A lot of times you walk to the fridge and you open it up and you're like, wait a second, how did I even get here? What am I looking for, right? So when we have an idea of who we want to be and we start practicing that, the opposite starts to become much more obvious as well. Because now we have a dichotomy. But without some sort of a vision of who you want to be, you'll always end up settling for whatever life gives you. And you'll be like, I don't know, I guess that's what I'm supposed to have. And you'll never feel like you're living the life that you're meant to live. Okay? But nobody's going to tell you how to live your life. You got to figure that out. Even a lot of people pray, God, what should I do? God wants to co-create with you, not tell you exactly what to do. Right? So this is the exciting part. If you see it as an assignment to create the most custom, amazing life ever, then it's fantastic. If it's like homework, then it's going to just feel hard. Yeah? But if the other side of all this work is that you stop running away from life and start living life to the fullest, is it not worth the effort? I would say so. But it's up to you. And everybody comes to this conclusion at different times. Thank you all. I'm going to pray. Good morning, Heavenly Parent. Thank you for showing up, as you always do, all the time, everywhere. I am really humbled to the fact that we live in this era when we have the entire universe in front of us. We can quite literally do anything we can imagine. But at the same time, it comes with a great deal of responsibility, and I just pray that, Heavenly Parent, that you can speak to each and every one of our hearts. Honestly, sincerely, I pray that your voice can be turned up in this culture of ours, because right now your voice is like a whisper that's hard to hear because there's so much static, so much noise. Especially when we turn on the news or hear about the world, it's just like very confusing, Heavenly Parent. But in the center of all this chaos is perfect love that we have access to at any point in time, any moment of every day. And we just have to still our minds long enough to understand why we've been running away so that we can choose to go towards you. But unless we know where we are, we can never figure out where to go. So I really pray, Heavenly Parent, that you can again, speak louder and louder and louder, and that we can hush our hearts so that we can hear you, and that our generation can be the last generation that ran away from you and started really running towards you, and that becomes the norm. Is that people make decisions based on their original selves, like True Mother's been really begging us to, not begging, but asking us to rise up to live in the frequency of love rather than fear and doubt and self-hatred. So thank you so much for this opportunity where you've given us all the ingredients, all the necessary components to live an abundant life in every sense of the word. And I pray that as many people as possible can see the doors as open and walk through those doors and live together with you. And that we can help each other along the way. Because we exist for you and for each other. And that's really exciting. So thank you so much. And I want to offer you this prayer on behalf of everybody here. And I do so in the Love family name. Amen and Aju. Thank you all.